I'd like to know, why shouldn't Iran have nuclear weapons anyway? I mean, all these other countries, Israel's got nuclear weapons, and they're terrorising the world like nobody's business. So I don't really get it. It's like the world consists of a boys' club. If you're in it, you could go around and do what you want, when you want, how you want. And if you're not in it, you're going to get bullied by everyone else.
Would you like Iran to have a nuclear weapon?
Yes, because Britain and America, how the world is at the minute is ridiculous. Why shouldn't they?
Well, not least because the Iranians have said that they would use it to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. That they would, it's death to America, death to Britain.
Iran says these things, but it's not going to happen. It's in jest and stuff like this. Israel is the reason.
It's in jest. It's a joke that they say they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. It's a joke that the Iranians, the Iranian theocracy, have engaged in the funding of terrorist acts in this country and around the world. That's a joke, is it to you?
Okay, first of all, who do you call a terrorism? The world. If you look at the world, and you tell me who is actually the terrorism of the world. Look at what Britain is done and still doing in countries. Look what America does. Look at what Israel is doing now. You know, the world is so mixed up. It's too much of one rule for one and one rule for another. That's the problem.
And you think the world becomes safer with the country that has been saying death to America, death to Britain, death to Israel, having a nuclear weapon? That makes us safer, does it?
I'll tell you what.
I feel the same about you, mate.
I'll tell you what doesn't make the world safer, okay, is when you have countries like America and Israel going around and bullying the world.
Bullying is such a sort of playground term to use here, Elias. If the intelligence was right, and there was an imminent threat of Iran having a nuclear weapon, they breached the Atomic International Agency energy guidelines on nuclear enrichment. They've got people saying that they're going to carry on trying to do this anyway. So it was happening. Is that not a good thing for the safety of the world that Iran is now set back in its aims of getting a nuclear weapon?
How can that be safety of the world? Look at what Israel is doing, and the whole world, or so many countries, is backing them up.
All right. Elias, I'll leave it there. We'll go round in circles on that one. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm stocking up on tins, you know.
You actually are, or are you having me on?
No, seriously. I've only got one tin of beans and one tin of sardines.
You're stocking up?
Yeah, it's always a good thing, isn't it? I mean, I remember what Mary said years ago, where the nuclear threat, and they distributed leaflets to every household when there was a threat of a nuclear attack. I can go back to 1960.
Right.
Which is a long while ago, isn't it?
I wasn't born, but go on.
There was a record there by a gentleman called Barry Maguire. The gist of the record was...
Eve of Destruction.
You remember?
No, I don't. I've just been informed.
It says you don't, believe, my friend, we're on the eve. Yeah. I mean, it might be more of a reality now as it was in 1960, which was the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we were on the brink. I think we're at a safer place now that Iran won't have the nuclear capability.
But are we, though? Because if you hear what the Met Police Commission are saying then, the sort of various proxies in the UK are still operating and are probably slightly emboldened by the Western response and the US, for example.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a different type of threat.
Yeah.
But that
very much on the homeland.
Yeah. I mean, you know, they would have had the capability of reaching us with a nuclear weapon. But I think the biggest enemy we have in this country is complacency. You know, when there's something happens, you know, we're on our guard for certain. Then things go very quiet, and then, you know, we have to be on our guard because it is a dangerous world. Look what happened years ago. There used to be always a saying, the Russians are coming, you know?
But we do see this, don't we? I mean, look, if we think to the sort of Salisbury poisoning as well, we're not totally immune to these events happening on our soil.
And look what happened in what year was it when we had that 7? What was it? What was the date of the attacks?
Which one?
In this country, not 7/11.
7/7 are you thinking of?
Yeah.
Well, the anniversary's coming up, indeed, isn't it? Next week.
Well, I remember that.
Yeah.
It's good that people can start thinking about things and not get too complacent, and start preparing for any eventuality.
Well, I'm going to be personally affected by this. I think the government's claim of wanting the disabled people to live with dignity is a far-off dream when you're bladder and bowel incontinent as I am. I've got MS, arthritis, and I've had a stroke. I've had several really brutal assessments under the Conservatives. The last one, where the assessor actually lied and downgraded me. So I had the extreme stress of having to appeal, and I won my appeal. I sort of expected this from the Conservatives, but not from the Labour Party that I've voted for all my life. I think you can hear how angry I am.
Yeah, no, I can. Can you just rewind 1 second? Why would someone lie and downgrade you?
I have no idea. Thank God my husband was with me in the assessment. And, I had a witness to back me up. So I would have thought I was going mad. I'm a wheelchair user. She said she'd seen me walk in the letter. She also said that she'd examined me, but she never came anywhere near me. It was absolutely unbelievable. I really was horrified with what she said in this letter. Anyway, I won my appeal. But I just don't think I can ever vote for Labour again if this goes through. I've talked to my MP. I've emailed her. I've had really no satisfactory reply. I think this is, to be saving money off the backs of disabled people, especially when we have an ageing population, and the NHS, as the First Lady said, is in meltdown. And it's very difficult to actually get to some services.
Can you, there are a lot of people who perhaps don't, because it is quite complex if you haven't claimed and all the rest of it, and in terms of assessment. Which bit is it of it that's going to affect you? Is it the daily living or the mobility?
I don't know. I claim both. I have to help getting in and out of the bath. I have to help getting dressed. I can't cook a meal really by myself. My husband does all the cooking. My husband is an absolute angel. He doesn't claim carer's allowance or anything like that, which I feel he should, but he won't. And I just think this problem is just going to get worse. We are an ageing population, and it's just turning a blind eye to that fact, and the fact that the NHS is just really in crisis as well. So people aren't getting the help that they really need. I've been very lucky so far. But I know that outside of London, it's very hard to access some services. I had a friend actually who preferred to go to Dignitas rather than go through any more assessments, and she'd stopped claiming disability living allowance or PIP because she just couldn't stand the stress of it, and in the end, it all got too much for her. So she's no longer with us.
God.
Another mess up for her.
Harriet, how do you feel about these? I don't know if you heard Rachel Maskell. She's one of the Labour MPs who says she's going to vote for the amendment. In other words, she's not going to vote with the government. What do you think of these Labour MPs, these 135?
Well, thank God that the Labour Party still has some MPs, still has some people who have a conscience and who are, who... I just can't believe that the Labour Party is punching down on the most vulnerable people and the poorest people. I have a daughter as well. Children are going to be in poverty over this. I think it's just horrific. It's disgraceful. And the Labour Party, to me, if this goes through, the Labour Party are dead, to be honest. This isn't the Labour Party that I grew up with. This isn't the caring, equality-loving Labour Party. I don't know who these people are anymore.
Okay, Harriet, thank you very much. No, you don't need to say sorry. Thank you very much for everything that you said. That's your view. Many people agree with you. And some people, perhaps, I don't know, I presume people who perhaps haven't been through the system and are, nervous about what this is going to mean, what the changes are going to mean for them and the impact it has on an entire family. Perhaps they they feel that this is a blunt instrument, but we need to do something.
I know about this. My sister went to the school many years ago. I'm a Hackney boy, born and bred, and I know the school well.
Okay.
I'm born and bred here, and I happen to be black. And I use the word happen to be because you don't choose what you are what you are. And then you have the experience of what that can mean to other people. Now, why I say this, you wanted to know how this happens. When you think of a person, if you use the word person, and we all use it, you have to think what that means to the majority. You live as an individual, but you live within a culture, you live within a nation, and you have your own premise and thoughts about how and what you feel about yourself. But you encounter other people's reactions to what you are. When you happen to be a person of colour, non-apparent Indigenous as I am, what you encounter is tropes of identity that apply to you. And then people lessen your value based on that. You no longer become a person. You become a person in a hierarchy downwards. That is applied to nearly everybody who is of colour in this country. That girl encountered it. You can imagine the teachers there all went to university, all had training. I know it. My wife's a teacher and 2 daughters are in teaching. But they happen to come from a culture that they are the majority. They have an ideology that has been indoctrinated and by osmosis received.
Could a black teacher fall victim to the same osmosis?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course they would, because they are seeking to have their identity accepted.
Well, also, it's class and race. You can't ever really separate one from the other.
Yeah, it is class and race applied, but you have to look at where people see people like black people as a trope. Anybody who manages to be educated, speaks in a certain way, is seen as being exceptional rather than being who they are.
And yet,
we
Sam, who was on just before the news, defies any stereotyping or tropes, and her daughter much better behaved than some of her friends of different ethnicities, and yet still getting targeted in a way that fits your analysis.
Yeah, but what she cannot do
is
and
not
even
be black.
As an individual, she cannot transcend that. She can transcend it as an individual in actuality, in her being, in everything about her. But when people meet her, what she experiences is their decision of what she could potentially be. And when those teachers called those officers, that girl, Q, was treated as a young, black, defiant, obstinate girl who they thought had weed on her, and they then applied what you would apply to anybody who had weed and was being defiant and being criminal. And adultification is not applied because she's different in their eyes. It could be permitted to happen because she was not wholly a person in their eyes.
That's heartbreaking and completely
what
compelling.
I wanted to say,
go on.
It is like living an individual who lives here. Remember, we're only 3% of this population of 68 million. It's like living in an open prison. You're either performative, where you're trying to be exceptionally good, or if you stand up to the way that you're treated and being treated in this way, you are defiant.
You're a troublemaker.
And either way leaves you in the worst position of not being able to be what anybody wants to be, is themselves. Now, I don't say that anybody that struggles not being themselves, but can you imagine wearing a football strip that you can't take off and you're in the opposing team's end?
How do you account, and you may not be able to, for the panel's conclusion that race had absolutely nothing to do with this incident?
Because there is the belief in this nation that calls itself fair and just. You've got to remember the cultural tropes. I'm deeply embedded in this culture. I'm in it and of it. I call myself non-apparent Indigenous. And the non-apparent means that people ask me where I'm from, and I say London, and they go, originally.
Where are you really from?
So I'm deeply embedded here. What I want to say is this.
Go on.
You believe your fear. This culture believes it's fair and open-minded and just. And two, accept the premise of the actual act being permitted by teachers who will be predominantly white, educated and probably middle class, and then the policeman being given the identity and how to treat that girl by them. They set the premise for her to be treated in that way, and they, in their analysis and coming to the conclusion, are quite willing to say that it was wrong, but to accept the reason that instigated it is too much for the British psyche to accept. And until the majority of people, because you've got to remember, James, you will hear much more racism than a black person will in your lifetime, right? We receive it from the extremist, but the ordinary person who holds views negative towards people of colour will not ordinarily speak it, knowing what will come back on them. Okay,
yeah.
But until the majority,
I think life's getting a bit easier for them at the moment, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and quite right. I'm hearing much more, and to some degree, I like that. And you may find that a bit obtuse.
No, I don't. I can't say that because I'm not on the receiving end of it. But it
I want
gives
clarity.
Vindication.
I want to know who my enemies are.
Yeah.
I need to know who my enemies are, and I need them to declare. But one thing I will say. In me saying everything that I said, I hold myself to account as a man. And why I say this, I'm asking misogyny to changes because I have to intercede. It can't change by women asking it to change because they don't hold the power. And therefore, if I'm willing to hold myself account, I hold whitedom to account. And whitedom doesn't really exist. There are no white sorts and there are no black sorts, but there is white experience and there is black experience. And that girl was treated by whitedom as a thing, as less than. And when they've come to the conclusion that by the book, those officers and teachers acted wrongly, they cannot hold themselves to the true account of what permitted it to happen. And it is that we are people. We don't need your permission to be people. You do not decide our value, but you do every day.
Wow. Thank you. I don't think I have anything to add to that, Jeffrey, or any questions to ask you. Can I compliment the power of your advocacy?
You know, James, I'm a human being. I know you are. I listen to you, and I know you get it, James. But I've been waiting a lifetime. I'm a Hackney Downs boy who went through the education process in this country to be nothing. And what you hear is me screaming back, I'm something.
You certainly are. Take care, and thank you. Seriously, you won't be surprised to learn that you have your words are resonating with everybody listening in a quite extraordinary fashion, which is as it should be because you expressed yourself with extraordinary clarity. And I'm grateful to you for helping me to understand and giving me the confidence, actually, to say that there's no earthly way this panel could have correctly and completely transparently concluded that this incident had nothing to do with race. They are incapable, perhaps, of contemplating the possibility for the reason that Jeffrey highlighted so completely. And the reason why I didn't interrupt him as much as I interrupt other callers was because he was answering my questions as he spoke. And the only one I wanted to clarify was whether or not a black teacher could be subject to the same process, as it were, of indoctrination or osmosis, as he described it, that hierarchical notion of humanity. And of course, they can.